Welcome to the You Triumph podcast, where we explore the triumphs, challenges, and the power of giving back. I'm your host, Trevor Sterling, and this season's theme is Be the Ladder. We'll highlight individuals who have not only achieved success, but have used their journey to uplift others, overcoming social barriers along the way. From their motivations to the lessons they've learned, we'll explore how they've become a ladder for others, proving that real success is about lifting those around you. Thank you for tuning in to another You Triumph Be the Ladder series podcast. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today. There are some people who climb the ladder and once they've successfully climbed the ladder, then they give back. Well, this particular individual didn't wait until she climbed the ladder. She has given back and been the ladder through her entire career. She has gone on to set up her own recruitment company. She has set up her own charity. And she has more recently set up what is probably, I think anyway, one of the country's best awards celebrations, the Black Talent Awards. So without further ado, hello, Denise, how are you?
Hello, Trevor. I'm well, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your podcast today.
Well, welcome to Denise Myers, so the CEO and founder of Evenfields, which is a recruitment company. And I touched upon your charity, which I think is Evenfields Community. And I touched upon the Black Talent Awards. And what I was saying there is that you spent your entire career really giving back. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you to give me one or two pinch yourself moments as a bit of an icebreaker. So one or two moments where you've thought to yourself, I can't believe that I've achieved that. I really cannot. So one or two moments?
Okay, so to do with the Black Talent Awards, I think year one was a pinch me moment where the dreams and the vision was realised, and it was more of an out of body experience than a pinch me moment, if I'm honest. I arrived from the hotel to the venue, and there was, we'd arranged for a jazz orchestra. They were outside, the sun was shining, it was early evening in September, people were arriving. It looked like the Oscars, there was a red carpet. I was like, do you know what I mean? I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe that the dream that we had as a team had come to fruition. And this was it.
And just to give listeners an idea of the scale, I mean, 500 people. How many people attend the Black Talent Awards?
First couple of years, it was like 500. That increased to 650 last year. Yeah. So
wow.
So for a first event, it was huge.
And the inaugural event was that 2022.
So, yeah, that's right.
So it's only been going for 2-3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. We've done 3 and we're going into year 4 now.
And at the first event, you had over 500 people. That is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Well, I can understand why that's a pinch yourself moment. I'm having to pinch myself. And I've obviously been to the awards, and we're going to come back to the awards, which is obviously to recognise those that have done tremendous things, particularly the Black community. It's the Black Talent Awards. But you've really got a sense of purpose, and I suspect this is something which you've always had, because from day one, it seems that you felt it was important to help those from ethnic communities, particularly the Black community, in terms of their careers, in terms of employment, and upskilling them, and now recognising them. What gave you that sense of purpose, do you think?
I think it was experience. As we say, we all overcome challenges, or we all face challenges and barriers. I faced mine. I don't feel as though I've faced as many as I hear. The stories that I hear on a daily basis are terrible, And they're not only from the black community. I just want to, make that clear. It's not just the black community that face challenges. However, we do seem to face, as statistics show, we do seem to face a lot more than on others. And I would say that, yeah, you're right. My career in recruitment has always kind of been for the underdog, the candidate, whether that's a white female candidate, Eastern European, Asian. We see the barriers that they face when the candidate comes in and they're talking to me, and I'm like, how do you, first of all, how do you survive on that salary? You've been treated terribly. You're getting turned down for opportunities where you really shouldn't be. So, and it's easier to see that, and it's not just, you can see it and I can say, I've faced challenges, but that's quite personal. But when you see other people's challenges and you're looking, from a different point of view, and you can say, well, actually, yeah, you really, it's not somebody that's like thinking that they're having all these barriers. You can actually see the barriers that are in front of them and they've had to navigate. So I think that's what's given me that sense of purpose, if I'm honest.
So what was the moment where you thought to yourself, right, I'm going to go into recruitment? Was it, because that wasn't something that you necessarily wanted to do when you were in your teens, was it?
No, not at all. And to be honest, I hadn't had the best experience with recruiters up until that point, and it was as far off my radar as anything. I hadn't even thought about that. I'd just finished my degree and I wanted to do, there's two things. I'd done a business degree. I was interested in HR and I was interested in marketing. So I went to a recruitment agency to sign up, and the recruiter was very clever, and she was like, well, actually, the role of a recruiter is a bit of both of those, if you're interested, and then while we look for something else for you. So I was like, okay, then I'll give it a go. It's a job. I was a, single parent, so it was a job that I needed. And so 25 years later, I'm still I'm still in the game.
So wouldn't you at that point then have thought, well, I'll get a job as a recruiter? Because you actually set up your own recruitment company. So how old were you when you set up Evenfields?
So when I set up my first recruitment business, I was 40. So
Right.
no, I wasn't 40. I was nearly 50. 40, yeah.
You look like you're only 40 now. So
Thank you. Yeah, so it was quite, and I got to the point where it was like now or never, and I thought, okay, then let's just give it. And I had enough money to keep me going for 6 months, and I thought, well, if it doesn't work, then I'll pack it in and go back and get a job as a recruiter. But if it does, so 10 years down the line.
you were working for a recruitment company then, were you? And then set up your own company.
Yeah.
So you've quite a bit of experience working for another company, and then
Yeah,
you
yes.
thought, I need to take control of this
Yeah.
and set up my own. Quite a brave thing to do.
That's where that experience came in, about seeing the barriers that other people were facing from working for, high street recruiters.
So can we explore that a bit more? The problems that you encounter now that are told to you now when people are looking for work. Can you just give us a snapshot of some of the issues? Because the reality is that those from ethnic communities are more likely to be unemployed than others. And that's a problem that's existed for a very long time. And this is the thing that you're trying to combat. What kind of experiences are you hearing which makes your work so important?
There's lots of different things that happen. Your name can be number one. This, as a CV goes across, so the name, if people feel that they can't pronounce the name, or they automatically think of that name and think, oh, that's a black person's name. You talk about unconscious bias there, or an Eastern European name, or an Asian name, or African name. Immediately, and that's been proven with the was it Adam and Mohammed test that the BBC did. So that's number one. Number two is when you actually go for an interview and you turn up, and you're not what they expected, or again, bias in the system where you're as equally experienced and qualified to do the role as somebody else, and you don't get it because you're not a cultural fit and they don't know how you're going to fit into the team, which is because it is, and we know this, that people recruit like for like, and also we say if you can't see it, you can't be it. And if you flip that on the head, it's the same. So if you've got a team and they all look the same and they get on well, and it's hard for you to see somebody that doesn't look like that team in there, how that's going to work for you as an organisation as well. So there's a lot of barriers that people face, and that I'm hearing that, again, not only the recruitment, but the promotions, opportunities that are given once you are employed is a big problem and is a big issue.
Is that still an issue now? Because there's obviously the issue about finding work, but then there's the issue of being able to retain the job and be treated fairly when you're at work. And so, is your experience that still is an ongoing
Yeah,
problem and challenge?
yeah. I would probably say that's maybe a bigger challenge, that you've got a lot of people stuck in the lower, and people have been in roles for like, I'm not talking, 6 months, 2 years. People have been in roles for like 10 years and they've never ever progressed, and they're training new people who are, leapfrogging them, and they're going up the ladder, and they say, oh yeah, you didn't get the job, but yeah, we've given it to so and so, but can you train them?
There's been quite a lot of reports on this. I think of the McGregor Review and various others which talk about discrimination which still exists in society, but also within employment, not being able to make it into the boardroom if you're from certain ethnic communities, etc. And I do a lot of work with the NHS, and they have a huge problem, a lack of diversity in leadership. So for anybody listening now who's experiencing these kind of issues in terms of finding work, what kind of advice and guidance and support are you able to give them?
I would say look for organisations that are talking about this issue, that they recognise, and I think that's the first point with everything that we talk about when we're talking about bias and unfairness within the workplace and underrepresentation. It is organisations that recognise that it's a problem, and they're saying, you know what, this is a problem, we need to do something about it. Those are the types of organisations that you want to work for. And that's just my personal view. I wouldn't want to be working for or working with organisations that are just doing it for the sake of it, and they don't see that it's a big problem, but they've been told to do it, or they think they should because everybody else is. Once you recognise that there is a problem and you think, right, okay, then we want to do something about it. I can recruit all day long for organisations and be putting people in, but if they're not staying, there's no point. Or if I'm putting them in, and this is probably big coming from a recruiter, because recruiters, we are known. People think that we just, it's just all about the money, but it's 100% for me. It's not. It's about. I've always had this moral problem about, because I do permanent recruitment, taking somebody out of a job or an organisation where they're well looked after to put them into one where I know they're going to have issues and they're going to have problems. And being able to work for yourself and be your own boss and be able to choose the organisations that you work with is a blessing for me, because that takes away that, oh, this is a national account, you've got to place people in here, and I'm like thinking, who'd want to go and work there? So for me, it is a blessing to be able to work with organisations that are working towards a fair workplace for all.
Do you work with the organisations, the employers, and help them to develop their practices and make sure that they have equal or non-discriminatory practices as well? Do they lean on you for advice and guidance?
They do, and and that's why we're about to add another string to our bow, if if that's what you could, about include, because we're all about making impact, and there's only so much impact that you can do as a recruiter, 360 recruiter. There's only so many candidates that we can help, and there's only so many organisations that we can help if we're looking after all of their vacancies. But if we train them and their teams how to do it themselves, then the reach is much bigger and the impact is bigger, and then obviously the organisation will save a lot more money if their teams are doing that as well. They are reaching, they're attracting, and also it's all about the internal part as well, as you say, the policies and the procedures. So what we're offering will encompass all that. We'll have proper HR support, senior HR support, and case studies where this has worked, and stats and everything else that they can see that.
Yeah, so increasing their knowledge base actually gives
Yeah.
you much more. So, I mean, tell us about Evenfields Community, because you've gone beyond just recruitment. You've actually set up a charity. Can you tell us a bit about what the charity does?
So at the moment, what the charity does is works with young people, not just young people. If I'm honest, we developed a program, but we've tested it out with different groups as well to see how it works, and it works well with all groups. But I think it's nice to have a cohort that are similar, so that people can work together, and they don't feel, well, actually this person's worked before, or they've got a degree and we haven't, and all the rest. So it's people with a similar background, and we have a program which is a employability and mindset program, and it talks about your career planning, and it touches on, it's not just, oh, this is how you do an interview, because a lot of people who we are working with are not unemployable, and I would say the majority, they're not unemployable. They are, most of them are already employed, but they are underemployed. They're not employed to the level that they should be. They're not getting the opportunities that they should, and therefore their confidence has slipped, and they don't see themselves in the roles that they should be doing, because they've been, either they've been turned down for them, they haven't had the opportunity, or they don't know where those opportunities are. They haven't really thought about that.
Funny enough, I was a speaker at the Ethnic Minorities Conference for the Civil Service last week, and afterwards a man came up to me. He said to me that he's of Jamaican origin. He'd been in his role for many years. He was in his late 50s, and he said that he'd got to a point now where he'd lost so much confidence, and was so demoralised because so many people had been promoted over him over the years, and so he'd given up on applying for promotion. So the piece you were saying there about confidence is so incredibly important. If you get knocked back so many times, and if you see other people being promoted over you, your confidence really goes. So the work you're doing there is incredibly important. So once you've built that confidence, then you give them a bit of know-how and skills to be able to get through their interviews, to reshape their CVs.
Also connections. We have the job board as well. So it's about, my thing is that I know that if there's a job being advertised on a job board that focuses on black talent, I know that employer is looking for somebody like me. And we have barriers to even apply for a job. Before you click the send my CV button, in your head you're going, I wonder what it's like. I wonder if they have problems there. I wonder if anybody looks like me that works there. I wonder what my boss is going to be like. All these things that we automatically think of before we even say send that CV. We go through so much turmoil. Is it going to be worse than where I am now? Is it? Do you know what I mean? All these things and all these stories that we've heard in the past, all our own experiences before we can even say, yes, let's just apply. So this is, what we want people to be directed in a way that they think, right, okay, then, well, these companies are, at least I know that, they want me for one, and that's a big thing.
So safe spaces, really, they're going to be a safe space in terms of employment.
Yeah.
So going back a few years now, and I'm thinking in terms of George Floyd and the events that followed led to a real kind of rethink of many employers who took the view that they needed to do more and introduce various diversity policies and practices, and we seem to have turned a corner. But of course, now with what's happening across the pond, there seems to be a kind of move away and a lot of anti-diversity narrative now. Are you seeing that sort of creep across here? I mean, some American companies got bases here. Are you starting to see that where it's okay now to rip up those policies and not really take this into account?
At the moment, I don't think people are going down that. I think they're being cautious about when they've got they've got offices in America and across the ocean there. But I think it's what I would say that I'm seeing, that there is a contingent of people that think, oh well, actually we don't have to do this anymore. But I would say at your own peril, because if you look at the future talent pipeline that's coming through in the UK, school children, university students, there is a high population of, as we say now, the global majority there. And organisations will get left behind. And I think the inclusive recruitment part of DEI is something that you really need to still have a hold on, because at the end of the day, there won't be enough white males to go around for all the organisations in a few years' time. And even if there were, this is another point that I'm very, very keen to make, is that will they want to work in an organisation that is all white male anyway? And the answer is no. Because if you've been brought up in a multicultural environment, you've gone all through school, you've gone all through college. We know that during the George Floyd incident and what happened over that summer, the majority of people that were campaigning were young white students. They led the march on this. So this is what I'm trying to say. You might think now it's a good thing to do, but the whole community is coming by, and it's not just the black community, it's not just the Asian community, it's the whole UK population. People might be loud, a certain section might be loud, but they are not the majority that think this way. As far as from what I'm hearing and who I'm speaking to, I don't think that's the case. And I think organisations would be making a really big mistake if they don't carry on with this, especially with inclusive recruitment.
I mean, you've been a huge champion in terms of instilling confidence into many, many people, and in terms of the work you do with recruitment, upskilling people, working with employers to ensure that they provide those safe spaces. I mean, a huge champion. And I said at the start, you're incredibly purpose-driven. So I'm just curious if we can just go to the bottom rung of the ladder, because I know that there are parallels between you and I in terms of our parents. Your parents, I think, came from Jamaica in the late 1950s?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So as did mine. Whereabouts in Jamaica?
They both came from Westmoreland in Jamaica, which is near to Negril. It's that area, Savlamar. And they both came from the same area, district they call it in Jamaica. So they both came from waterworks.
And they settled in the Midlands?
They did.
And you're one of six?
Six. Yeah.
So you're one of six, brought up in the Midlands.
Yeah.
You were kind enough to give an indication of your age, but assuming we're not too far apart, you would have been brought up during what would have been troubling times, fairly overt racism within society
Mhm.
back then
Yeah.
as a child. So school wouldn't have been particularly easy. I wouldn't have thought, wouldn't have been empowering, and wouldn't have left you feeling that you were going to necessarily do incredibly well. How well did you do at what would have been, I'm guessing, O levels?
Not great. Well, I say not great. I did CSEs, so I wasn't even in the O level stream. So I was kind of mid that area. So it's CSE. So I could have got a grade one CSE, which would give me an O level.
For listeners that did GCSEs
Yeah.
back in the day, GCSEs were O levels. And if you weren't considered to be bright enough to do O levels, you ended up doing the Certificate of Secondary Education, which was the CSE. But if you happened to get a grade one, that would be equivalent to an O level, equivalent to a GCSE. So you did CSEs rather than O levels. Did you get any O levels at that point?
I got O level in English, so I got my English language, and I got Ori as well. So, but I went back to do my English. So I did that I did that at night school at college. When I left school,
So how old were you when you left school?
16.
So you left school at 16, and did you go into work then at that point? Because you could leave school at 16, couldn't you? Go to work then.
I went to college, so I went to a college to do secretarial studies. So the shorthand and typing and all that office practice and all that.
Right. Okay.
Because
Um,
I wanted to be a social worker, but in those days you couldn't go straight into social work. I think you had to be 21 before you could start doing so, because you had to have a life experience. So my thing was, right, okay, then I'll do secretarial. I'll go and work for social services as a secretary or something, gain some experience, and then when I'm ready, I can go.
what do you think led to you only doing CCSEs, do you think, when you were 16? Was it because of sort of social challenges in your earlier years? Or was it, was there a sense of not being pushed by the school, or, is it, was that the expectation from the school and therefore you fulfilled, it was a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy in the end?
I would definitely say it was not being pushed enough. And I think, when I say not being pushed by your parents, but in those days, our parents thought, okay, we're sending our kids to school. The school knows what's best. And if the school says they're doing, Denise is doing CSEs because that's where she is, that's what she's doing. So I think because and then having big families, working, it was hard, I think, for our parents to, they just put their trust in the school system, I think.
And what did your mum do?
My mum was you would call her is it HCA now, healthcare assistant. She was
Right.
he was an auxiliary
Auxiliary nurse, yeah.
nurse.
And your dad?
My dad worked in the steel industry. He was a crane driver. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we got very similar experiences, and my parents left school in Jamaica very early. They lived in a place called Windsor Forest, which was in the country. So there was nothing really for them to do. When the opportunity came to come to England, my father was a carpenter, and my mother worked initially as a cleaner, and they just trusted the school to do what they thought the school would do. And I think they were also slightly intimidated by the school because they didn't go through the schooling system here themselves.
I think they thought that they would get the same, the schooling system in Jamaica where, the teachers are on your back to do better. I think they thought that that's what we would get here as their children, but you don't get that. We didn't get that support and that push.
And that low expectation. So, a careers advisor suggested to me that I perhaps could be a warehouseman. or I could be a warehouseman or a tennis racket stringer, or a postal clerk for a law firm. And it was just pure chance I got the postal clerk job. The same for you, because I think when you were thinking, I could be a social worker, wasn't you sort of encouraged to not think that you could be a social worker?
Yeah, I remember my form tutor. I remember us having a little conversation with him about what we were going to do when we left school. And I was like, yeah, I've already signed up for college, the local college, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going there, as I said, I'm going to do secretarial studies, then I'm going to work for social services, and then I'm going to become a social worker. That's what I want to do. And I had my plan. I was ready. That was what I was going to do. And he said, don't you think you'd be more suited in, working in the office? Maybe in the office of one of the local factories, i.e., just go straight there. You don't need to go to college. You don't need to do this. Just go see if you can get a job round the corner in one of the factories. Because at the back of the school, we had it's like a big industrial road where all the, there was lots and lots of factories, and a lot of people, left school and went and worked straight in the factory because their parents worked there, etc. So that's where he saw me.
So despite that inauspicious start, which is similar, as I say, to mine, you've gone on to become the CEO and founder of your own recruitment business. You've set up your own charity. And in your first year of the Black Talent Awards, over 500 people turned up. I mean, you must feel this sort of sense of validation and very proud of what you've achieved. Or do you still feel driven to do more and more? Do you ever feel satisfied?
Definitely feel driven to do more. With regards to definitely not satisfied, because the problems are still there. I think what I'm trying to do is constantly think of ways where we can have more impact, what we can do differently to have more impact, and not necessarily me having more impact, just more impact on the community and on fairness in the recruitment process across the board. So the more people, I don't see other organisations as a competition for me. I'm just thinking the more people that are doing it, the more opportunities, because I can't do everything. I just haven't got the scope to do absolutely everything, and I can't help everyone. So I'm just thinking of how can we have more impact. The job board is an opportunity to have more impact. So, the organisations who we work with, every single one of their jobs from entry level to senior roles can be advertised on the job board, so people can see what's available and what, if an organisation was to give me, 5 or 6 jobs to work on, they might have 100 at any one time. They might have temporary roles. They might have, so many different opportunities that I can't work on every single one. As long as those are visible, there's opportunities out there for everybody. So so I think my not being satisfied is about how can we create a greater impact.
Because you're incredibly purpose driven and want to have an impact on communities and on society. Because if you can do that, then the likes of the young Denise, the young Trevor, we don't fall through the gaps. I mean, we were fortunate. You're trying to make sure it's not about fortune, it's about what's fair. There's something which you've done, which was, I think this is a real illustration of the impact of what you've done. It's something which was personal to me, because my PA saw, I think it was on LinkedIn, that there was the Black Talent Awards, recognizing those that had, really achieved a certain level of impact. And she was kind enough, my PA Sharon Hamilton, kind enough to put my name forward to an awards I'd never heard of in the senior leader category. And then lo and behold, I found myself involved in this process, and I became aware of the Black Talent Awards and was blessed to win, to receive that award. And the impact on me was this sense of I've been recognised for what I've done. My start to you was similar. I had two O levels and was given little confidence that I could achieve, and went on to become senior partner at Moore Barlow, the first black senior partner at top 100 UK law firm. But I never really felt that I'd done enough. I still felt the need to do more, and I still have that desire. But there was something tremendous in going along to the Black Talent Awards and hearing those inspirational stories of others that had broken through and had achieved against the odds, but also hearing about the organisations that were taking steps to make an impact. And the community of 500 odd people had all been brought together by you. I mean, it's an incredible achievement. So can you just tell us a bit about what brought about the concept of the Black Talent Awards, and how you've managed to make it such a hugely impactful success?
Yeah, I mean, it came about during lockdown. Myself, a gentleman called Joe Bailey, who I used to work with many moons ago in recruitment. And we were talking about awards ceremonies, and because he works in the corporate world, and he was moaning about that most of the awards that are out there these days are for entrepreneurs. It's all about business awards and entrepreneurs, and the sector awards. It's very rare that you'll see a black person up for nomination, let alone to win one. But still, we were like, what was going to be behind it, etc. How we were going to do it, how we would get organisations on board. So we were like, so we left that. It was an idea, but we didn't take it any further. And then we were looking at the Evenfields Community programme, and I have a few advisors that work in the DI world for corporates, large corporates, and I just run things by them. What do you think of this, and what do you think of that? And this person said, your programming is great. However, I think if you lead with the awards. So it was a programme, and the end of the programme, we'd have an awards ceremony. He said, try and lead with the awards, then you'll get people on board, and then you can move on to do the other things that you want to do there. And I was like, okay. And, and I went back to Joe and I said, what do you think? Somebody's come back to me and said this. What do you think? Shall we do it? And he was like, yeah. Let's do it. Then now we've got something. Because he was talking about, we were talking about, mental, and it was a lot. And we were like I was thinking it's too much to do everything at once. So we said, right, okay, then Evenfields, it would sit well within Evenfields, because we're talking about black talent. The awards are about black talent. So we changed the name of what the awards was going to be and everything. So that's where it was born, and that was the idea, was to not just recognise black talent, which is so important, often overlooked, but there's another arm to that, and that is to, as part of the community, to find relatable role models for the next generation, and that's what a lot of it is about. And that's why I encourage people to nominate, and also to nominate yourself, because there's a young person out there that needs to see you, and a lot of us are we go to work, we get on with our jobs, we get on with the work. We're not, I mean, I am, but a lot of people, they're not all over LinkedIn. You would never even know they were there. You would never even know that they work for some of these huge organisations doing jobs and careers that we don't even know exist, or a young person doesn't even know that that's a possibility, because they have never seen anybody that does that. Like, say, for instance, me and you, where we were coming from, we didn't know anybody personally, or say that we've seen anyone that looks like us that works in this industry, or they're doing this job.
Yeah, I mean, I get it quite a lot. People are surprised.
Yeah, they
that I could be a lawyer. I did a TikTok thing the other day where I was interviewing people, asking them to just have a guess at what I did, and quite a few of them said probably community work. None of it related to professional services, and it's true that the profile I got meant that people could see that there was not just a black partner, but a black senior partner, that it was possible, and it opened their eyes to the idea. And so, what's you've gone from 500 in the first year, you smashed it the second year. It's again this year. Would you like to tell everybody when it is this year, so that people can put forward nominations or self-nominate?
Nominations will be opening on the end of March. I don't know whether that's the 30th or the 31st. I think it's a Friday. Nominations will open, and the awards will be in September, Friday the 26th of September. So obviously in between that time we'll have the judging and the interviews and all the rest of it. But yes, nominations are so important, whether you're nominating yourself or you are nominating somebody else. It's quite an easy process as well. I mean, you've been through the process, Trevor. How did you find it?
I felt like I was being guided through it, which was great. So I was being asked questions, and it was really to understand my purpose, but also interesting enough, and I think it's a great question. What I might do, with it, with the exposure from it. So it really felt that it was an award with a purpose behind it, as opposed to just being sort of congratulatory. It's far more than that. And I thought for those that do attend, I think it's important that you say that they have to bring their dancing shoes, because one of the best parts of after this ceremony, I mean, the party afterwards is just phenomenal. It's probably the best of all the parties I've been at any awards. So it's a great event. Can I just what do you do to turn off, Denise? Now, before you answer that, I think I saw somewhere that you may play a little bit of golf.
Well, I've had golf lessons, and I do go to the range sometimes, but I do want to really pick that up again and do it properly. I've never had a proper round of golf, right. So it's lessons and learning how to hit the ball, if I'm honest, but that's quite a stress reliever in itself. So yeah,
it is until you get on an 18-round course. But, and so what do you do? What kind of things do you watch on TV? What other activities do you do to relax?
Okay, so I do like to watch. I'm a bit of a reality TV, so I don't like to watch anything too heavy. So I like The Apprentice. Obviously we've got Tim Campbell is our ambassador, so but I'd watch it anyway. I've been watching it all my life anyway, so that's great. So I like to watch The Apprentice. I like to watch Dragon's Den. I like to watch rubbish like Married at First Sight and stuff like that. But I tell you what, I have been watching. I don't like to get involved in, like in series and things, Netflix series and things like that, because I just feel as though I get a bit over addicted to things like that. But I've been watching, have you heard, is it Meet Millie Black? It's set in Jamaica. Oh, it's good.
That's on Netflix, is it?
No, it's on Channel 4.
Right, I'm going to find that.
I started watching it this week, so...
Well, so you said rubbish like, but I have to tell you, it's a confession. I think people may know this, but Married at First Sight, Australia, and Love Is Blind are my two guilty pleasures. So
I've never watched Love Is Blind because I do have an addictive personality. So so one thing that I watch, and then all the I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. And as one thing finishes, another one starts, and I'm like, oh my God, that means I'm not going to be able to get to bed until 11 o'clock every night. So,
but it is incredibly important to have downtime, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. And my downtime is to do things which aren't intensive because my work is intensive.
Yes. Yeah.
And to rest and to recharge, that's really important. Denise, I mean, your career has been extraordinary. I don't know if you hear this enough, really, but the impact that you've had on so many people is absolutely huge, and the effort it takes. 'Cause I know that you're probably a bit like me. You're really a bit more of an introvert. So when you're doing these things,
Yeah.
um, you really are taking yourself out of your comfort zone. So I would like to say on behalf of everybody that knows you, and there are many, many people, for all those you've supported, for everything you've done, you have just been a tremendous ladder. And, my mantra, don't just aspire to climb the ladder, be the ladder. You've gone on and helped people build ladders. So huge thanks to you for everything you've done, and for coming onto this podcast. So I hope I relaxed you.
Yeah, you did. You did. It's the time's flown by, and and thank you so much for those kind words. It does mean a lot. That's what I'm here to do, is to try and create that impact and opportunities for people to have the career that they deserve and that they want. Sometimes not even that they want. They don't even know that career is available to them. So yeah. So thank you, and to be recognised is good. And yes, I am quite an introvert. People might not believe that, but I am quite an introvert and like to be in the background. But yeah, it's a blessing to be able to see the impact that these awards have had on people's careers, people's confidence. Opportunities have opened up for some businesses, and career opportunities have opened up for people. So for me, that is what we planned when we started this, and what we wanted to see. So so I'm truly grateful.
Well, you've shown that ordinary people can achieve the extraordinary if they have a positive mindset and they are open to the experience. So thank you for joining this podcast. And all that remains is for me to thank our sponsors, Moore Barlow Lawyers, the Stephen James Partnership, and the wonderful Harrison Associates. Thank you very much, Denise Myers.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the You Triumph podcast. I've been your host, Trevor Sterling, and this has been a journey of triumphs, challenges, and the power of giving back. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, and leave a review. Your support helps others discover the show and the valuable lessons shared. For more information about You Triumph and how we can assist with motivational speaking, consultancy, or event needs, visit youtriumph.co.uk. Join us next time as we continue to explore the stories and strategies behind success and becoming a ladder for others. Remember, triumph isn't just about climbing the ladder, it's about becoming the ladder and lifting others along the way. I want to express sincere gratitude to our sponsors for their invaluable support. PLG Consultants, Harrison Associates, Moore Barlow Lawyers, the Stephen James Partnership, and Radio Jackie have been instrumental in making the You Triumph podcast a reality. To our listeners, I encourage you to check out the great work of these sponsors. It's because of their partnership that we can continue bringing these important stories and insights to you. Thank you once again for standing with us and supporting the You Triumph podcast.